All right, guys, it's Miss Griffin again. I'm not sure why I wrote the word answer key up here in name. That's what I do on my own keys, but this is Miss G. We're taking a look at Unit 5, Skill 2, Part B. So it's just an extension of what we learned last class, except this time the bases of these triangles are not parallel. So our important question here, or our essential question, says, what is an important step to take when given triangles without parallel bases? So if we take a look at example 1, it says in triangle CHR, O is on HR and D is on CR, so that angle H is congruent to angle RDO. So remember last class when we talked about the triangles having parallel bases and the angles being congruent, that were like matching up to each other, they were next to each other, corresponding. Well, in this case, we don't have parallel bases, so the angles that are congruent are actually kind of flipped around from one another. So we're going to label our picture, but then we're going to redraw it. That's the important step you want to take when you don't have parallel bases, because then you can clearly see what two parts match up. So RD is 4, RO is 6, OH is also 4, and then we're looking for the length of CD, so of course I'm going to call it X. Alright, so we're going to redraw the first triangle, being the big one, CHR. C goes up top, H on the bottom left, R on the bottom right. H had an arc mark in it because it was congruent to a different angle. HR in total is 4 and 6 together to make 10, so we're going to put a 10 here. And CR in total is not 4x. Don't write 4x on your paper. It's x plus 4, or 4 plus x. Just like you had to add 6 and 4 to make 10, you have to add x and 4 to make x plus 4. So here I have x plus 4. Then I'm going to take and redraw this small triangle DOR so that the matching parts, match. So I'm going to draw it in the same way that I drew the big one. And I'm going to put my arc mark down in the bottom left corner like I saw with angle H. And I'm looking back at my picture and I'm seeing, okay, the arc mark was in D, so D has to go here. R was in both triangles, so it must stay in the same spot. That leaves O to come up top. So again, we're flipping and redrawing the triangle so that the corresponding parts actually physically match up on our picture. Remember that DR was already the length of 4, and OR was the length of 6. So now when we look at these pictures, we can easily set up a proportion. Maybe big triangle over small triangle. Remember, you get to choose big over small or small over big. It's your preference. So I'm going to start with x plus 4 over 6 equals 10 over 4. You could also have done something like we talked about last class with, say, side over base equals side over base. You're going to get the same answer regardless. So when we try to solve this, we do still have to cross multiply. This part is easy. 6 times 10 is just 60. This other part you got to be careful about. We have 4 times the entire quantity x plus 4. When you multiply by a quantity, you have to put it in parentheses. So maybe get in the habit of doing that up here in the proportion itself. When we have a number outside of parentheses, remember that you always distribute. So we have 4 times x and 4 times 4. So 60 equals 4 times x plus whatever 4 times 4 is, 16. Then we subtract 16 from both sides, and we get 48 equals, or sorry, not 48, 44 equals 4x. You're going to divide to get x by itself, and we end up with x equals 11. But remember, they were asking for the length of CD, so we say CD equals 11. So it's a process that you are familiar with once you have set up the proportion. It's just the fact that you have to redraw your triangles in order to get the proper proportion. Because if we had just looked at the original picture and had done 4 over 6 and x over 4, you would have gotten a completely incorrect answer. You could even test it out if you want to make sure that I'm not lying to you. Try that proportion and you'll see that you won't get 11 for that answer. Flip it over, we're going to do one more problem very similar to this, both of which have been on the Common Core exam before, by the way. Example 2, we have triangle SCU shown below. Points T and O are on SU and CU respectively. Segment OT is drawn such that angle C is congruent to angle OTU. So find those two angles and mark them congruent. TU is 4, OU is 5, OC is 7, and we're looking for the length of ST, so I'm going to choose to call that X. Remember, these bases here are not parallel, so we cannot just go like left over right equals left over right here. We have to flip the triangles, meaning we're going to redraw them. I have C sitting over here, S up top, EU on the bottom. Always start with the big triangle, it's the easiest one to do. Then when I'm ready to do the small triangle, I put my arc mark here in the bottom left again. Not every picture is going to have the arc mark in the bottom left, by the way. It's just the way that the test makers had oriented these triangles. So T is the one that goes in the bottom left. U has to stay in its same place because it's the point at which both the triangles meet. And then O gets bumped up top. So we had TU was the length of 4. OU was the length of 5. OC was 7, so that makes CU the length of 12. And it also makes the length of SR, or SU, there is no R, sorry, SU, X, and 4. So is that X plus 4 or X times 4? Well, if I think back, I did 7 plus 5, so I'm going to do X plus 4. Now that we have the pictures redrawn, this should be nice and simple for you. Setting up a proportion, matching up the right parts, corresponding parts, to be more specific. This time I might go small triangle over big triangle just to show you that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you go small over big or big over small as long as you're consistent. So I'll start with the bases 4 over 12. And then from the small triangle I have 5, and that matches with X plus 4. So here we're cross multiplying, and I'm remembering to put X plus 4 in parentheses, very similar to last time. 12 times 5 is 60, 4 times the quantity X plus 4. Remember, you distribute, so we have 60 equals 4X plus 16. And I'm going to leave it to you to solve for X and then choose your choice. So pause the video while you do that. I'll put my answers up here and then hit play when you're done, please. Okay, so I found that X equals 11, which means that ST is also 11, so choice 3 should be the final answer here. I do want to point out to you that though these questions were both on the Regents exams, guarantee if they put another one on, the answer is not going to be 11. 11 just happened to be a weird coincidence between the two problems we just did. The practice problems, the answers are not 11, so do not just write down that X equals 11, please. Anyways, don't forget about your practice problems and your summary. Let us know if you have questions. Adios.